Welcome to another daily live webcast called Jencast. Today is Focus Friday, and I'm so excited because Focus Friday is always a favorite topic of mine. It's about growing our businesses, growing ourselves, making sure that we are the best representation of who we could be. And today's guest is Kira Sherman. She is of Revolution of Self, and she's going to be talking to us about the subject of intuition, which I really know not so much about. I know as entrepreneurs, I should be able to hone in and listen to my intuition, and Kira's going to tell us just why. But before I bring Kira on, I wanted to just briefly mention that this is Jencast is ending very soon. I'm going to be going into a 3-minute vlog format. It's the same daily type of a check-in, but just a different format after next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, our last 15-minute format guest is a blogger who writes Life After Liquidity. He sold his company to a very large conglomerate, and it was a successful exit. And he's going to talk to us about what that even means and how we can get to that point where someone could acquire our company. So anyway, let's go ahead and bring Kira on. Kira, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, the subject today is successful intuition. What does that mean? And especially, before we get into the whole intuition, revolution of self, let's start with that. What does revolution of self mean, and what is the work that you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
I feel like I can answer both of those questions in one go, because successful intuition to me is really about living a life that is one that is free. So a lot of people talk about balance, for example, or just even happiness. I know that I started my business because I really had a love to just be able to do whatever it is that I wanted to do. And I noticed that when I worked for other people as an entrepreneur at heart, maybe I felt stifled by that. And, I'm sure some of you can relate that maybe even sometimes you're working more than when you were working for somebody else, because it always seems like the business is always there. And I know that that's something that's easy to go into. But for me, I just wanted to start my own business for that sense of freedom. And I say that within my day-to-day business, because what I do support people in doing is finding that freedom within themselves. What does that mean? It's just connecting with their hearts and really connecting with what's important for them on a day-to-day basis, because what can easily happen is circumstances take over. And successful intuition to me is following your heart for a more effortless experience of business, and also in your personal life as well.
So you work with entrepreneurs for the most part then?
I work with everyone. I work with anyone and everyone who's looking to follow their intuition in their daily lives, whether that's an entrepreneur, although I tend to bring a lot of entrepreneurs with me. That tends to be a big demographic that I work with, but it really doesn't matter.
Well, it feels like nowadays, if you're living your true self and you're actually you're living into a point where you're happy, you want flexibility of work time, flexibility of environment, and the ability to do what you love, just like what you were talking about. And so it seems like most people would, if they're trying to be their truest, happiest self, would go that direction eventually.
Yeah, I feel that there's also a lot of great companies that you could work for that also give you a different kind of flexibility. So I don't feel like there's any one way of doing it. I think that's the beautiful thing about intuition, is that there is no way. It's moment to moment. There's that feeling of like, oh, I'd love to do this thing, but you can be working for an awesome company and still get that creativity moving through you. And then you pitch it to, a team of people around you, and then that's just the infrastructure with which you're using intuition with. It doesn't have to be you're the one creating everything. I mean, sometimes some of the most creativity comes from collaboration too. So it's working within a team or working within yourself, allowing those feelings of that creative expression or those ideas, but then acting on them, and then not getting also attached to whatever the outcome of that may be. A lot of times intuition is designed to give you an experience. And, I think one of the things that I relate to as an entrepreneur is I'll get this idea to go and do something, But then the thoughts are what get in the way of that, of like, oh, but I don't know if I have the money, or oh, I don't know if that's going to be a successful thing to do, or the last time I tried that, that didn't work. And what I guess the biggest message that I want to give to people today in terms of intuition is, when you get that feeling, when you've had that feeling of following that inspiration, or that intuition, that gut feeling of doing something, whether it's in your business or in your personal life, when you follow that, you feel usually more alive. That feeling of presence, that peace, it's like you make the decision and then it's done. And the rest of it becomes secondary, whether it's the circumstances, maybe even through the saying yes to that feeling, there is more possibility. So yeah.
Well, and a lot of what you're saying reminds me of The Secret. And I bring this up too often. I feel like people are like, this Jenn girl, she likes The Secret way too much. But I feel like it's a compilation of all the people that I could buy, 50 books from. I have this one little book that I read every once in a while to get reminded of this type of idea where, you commit to an idea, you decide what it is that you want, what's going to make you happiest, and then you go forward and you don't worry about the how. You just say, this is what I want, and then you just focus on that. And goes even back to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which I, again, mentioned probably too many times on the show. But if you have not read it yet, read the book. And it's focusing on what it is that you want, and then letting the universe figure out the how for you, but acting on it. And so that's the part that really I feel like a lot of us are missing as entrepreneurs. We have this idea and maybe we start to act on it, but we don't fully commit. So if it doesn't appear to us right away, or that how part doesn't appear to us right away, then maybe we'll back off. So what advice would you give to people that they've decided on what they want, they start to act on it, and for whatever reason they give up? So they've acted on their intuition and then they just abandon it.
Here's the thing about what you're saying, and to answer the question, I mean, the first thing that, not acting on it is usually the worst thing that you can do. You just have to act on it. Like, it's as simple as that. There's this great YouTube video on Mad TV, and I was just watching it this morning and having a really good laugh, because Bob Newhart brings this girl in, and his therapy that he offers is 5 minutes. And she says, I'm afraid of getting basically buried in a box. And he goes, stop it. Stop it. And it's really as simple as that. Like, stop it. Stop listening to your circumstances. Stop looking around you at the limitations that are in your mind, or what you perceive to be in your circumstances. Stop it. Stop referencing the thoughts in your mind for what's possible. That's the first thing that I want to say. But the second thing is The Secret and a lot of the things that are out there right now, it's not that they're not wrong, okay? But in my experience, it's which part of you is using them. I always joke with people that I work with in session. They're like, yeah, The Secret, and, I'm going to go and I'm just going to decide what I want. But in my experience of intuition, it's almost as if you, in your mind or your thinking or your thoughts, isn't the one deciding. So I guess the message is, for a lot of people, rather than going into your thinking about what it is that you think that you want, just open up a little bit more space to perhaps what your heart wants. I mean, some people resonate with different words, but for me, I remember one time I was in a hotel room in Washington, D.C., and I remember I just had this feeling. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm moving to Australia. And this was way before I knew anything even about intuition. I didn't read any books. I hadn't had any self-awareness epiphanies by that point. I was just, going along, minding my own business. And I had this overwhelming feeling, I'm moving to Australia. And 6 months later, I moved to Australia. It was this knowing, it was this experience that I had. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's almost as if I wasn't the one deciding. As my thinking didn't go, okay, what do I want in my life to make me feel secure, safe, happy? It wasn't anything like that. It was like this peaceful feeling washed over me and was like, wow, I'm moving to Australia. So I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think sometimes people get really confused about The secret is true, but not from the thinking mind, not from the limited part of you. You have to use that information from the intuition part of you or the being part of you. And that's when it becomes
So
possible.
Kira, let me ask you, if we're not using I don't know the best word for that, but if I'm not deciding this is what I want and I'm saying I'm going to move to Australia, who's giving me that idea? Where is that idea coming from? Where is the intuition coming from?
Your heart.
Your heart.
The best way that I would describe that is, yeah, I mean, think about times in your life where you weren't thinking about, like, how do I fix, improve, change, or better my circumstances? Maybe you were just on vacation or you're in the shower. Like when people aren't sitting there like brooding over how to make things happen, it's almost like the feeling finds you. You're in the shower or you're at the pool or you've taken a break from working, and all of a sudden you get this feeling and you're like, yeah, I'd love to do that. It comes from love,
So
not from how do I better things. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, well, no, I definitely understand where you're coming from. What's your thoughts on collective consciousness then?
Well, it's the same intuition. Like
So that's
my
what you would say intuition is kind of the same thing as you're tapping into collective consciousness. This idea that thoughts are all around us, and this is getting really you guys. But no, this is something I'm really passionate about. When you're
Yeah.
thinking about the mind and the science behind it too, this isn't just you know intuition. I think thoughts are out there, that kind of thing. And there is some science behind all of this. My husband listens to, what's that show that he listens to at night? Coast to Coast. Have you ever listened to that, Kira?
No.
Don't start, because it's full of conspiracy theories and all sorts of craziness, but there is some interesting scientific stuff that comes onto this radio program. But anyway, so there was a guy on that recently that was talking about as the mind as being the next place, the next space exploration. The idea that there's so much we don't know about the mind. And I feel like what you're saying is not just cutesy feeling. Daniel Laporte, I feel like, is really pushing the movement of feeling and the power behind feeling right now. There is science behind all of this. So with that in mind, where do you feel like feelings originate from? You're saying intuition provides it with us, but taking it back to Daniel Laporte's piece, she's saying that instead of creating goals, we need to decide on what it is that we want to feel. How do we know what it is that we want to feel? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I feel like it's such an interesting thing because, and I don't know what Danielle Laporte says, but one of the things that I talk about is you never want the thing itself. And I think that that's maybe what she's probably talking about is like, you don't want the car, you want the feeling that the car gives you. You know what I mean? It's like, but to answer your question, that feeling it all comes from the same space. Like you're talking about collective consciousness, right? For me, my own personal experience of that is just presence. Like when one is in the present moment, when one is just being, there's no need for fixing, improving, or changing, or there's not this wanting to change what my life should look like out of judgment, but I'm just here. I'm just embracing whatever is in this moment. It's all coming from that same space. To take it a little bit deeper, have you ever listened to the sound of silence? It's not nothing happening. It's one of the most beautiful experiences that I feel that one can have is just to listen to when quote unquote nothing is actually happening. That's when everything is happening. And it's that same feeling. And so, I feel that those feelings come from that space. Call it heart, call it intuition, call it the truth of who you are, call it your presence. It comes from there. And then it's up to you to say yes to the feeling and then act on it.
So, Kira, my last question then is taking it back to your subject matter, successful intuition, and the idea that Richard Branson, Oprah, Einstein, all these successful people, that they've used successful intuition to get what it is that they've been able to give to the world. What are some examples of them using successful intuition?
Unfortunately, Einstein, or fortunately, whatever, is dead. But he was quoted as saying the only valuable thing is intuition. And I feel that, again, this is sort of conjecture here because I don't obviously wasn't in Einstein's experience, but my feeling is that none of the ideas that he brought to the world actually would have come from him. And that's why he said the only thing valuable is intuition, because all of his ideas and creativity, and just to relate this back to you in your personal life or whoever's listening, it's the same thing. When you've gotten those ideas to act on something, or, Oprah, for example, a lot of people criticized her when she took that gut feeling to move away from perhaps the TV production, and not that she's not still doing that, but in a different way. They said that she would have lost all this money and all that stuff, but it didn't matter to her. She followed her gut instinct, and now she does these life television series. Is she making less or more money? Well, does that matter? Because if you watch her and the progression of the life journey that she's been on, I mean, I can't speak for Oprah, but I would imagine to say, and my feeling is that there is a much deeper connection that she is sharing with herself in the universe, and that's priceless. So.
Very interesting. So, Kira, you've brought up a lot of things to think about today, and I'm sure a lot of people have questions or be interested in finding out more about it. So, where can people find you online?
You can find me at revolutionofself.com. I do offer a weekly newsletter. It's completely free. You're welcome to join. I do often send out pieces of writing, also sometimes some audio gifts, and anybody who joins my newsletter is welcome to take me up on a 15-minute free consultation where we sit over Skype or FaceTime, or there's so many options these days with technology, but we can really connect. And if you do have some further questions and you'd like to sit with me, I'm happy to offer that to you today.
Fantastic. And everyone that's watching, Kira is actually, she's calling in today from Pasadena, Palm Springs on a work outing. You're working. So I'm really grateful that you took the time to jump in and make sure that you had internet connection and all of that fun stuff. So Kira, thank you so much for sharing with us on Focus Friday.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just so you guys know, by working, I'll probably be laying out by the pool and doing some writing. So
That's not fair.
I'm happy the opportunity to come here today too.
Fantastic. All right. So everyone, we've just been hearing from Kira Sherman. She is of revolutionofself.com. So grateful for her sharing about successful intuition. If you want to find out more, make sure that you check out our website. In the meantime, sign up for yfe.me/mailed it to find out about everything young female entrepreneurs. Like I said, next week we're doing things a little differently with this live webcast. It's at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it's turning into a 3-minute vlog format. So hopefully you guys will all follow me over on that direction. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a fantastic Focus Friday.